Okay, looks like we're streaming. Michelle, do you have audio fixed yet?
I'm getting there.
Okay. I'll need you or Val to call roll since doesn't look like Lisa Kraft is here. Is that okay?
Trustee Grumbles?
Hang on one second.
Okay.
All right, today is May 21st, 2021. We're here for a special meeting of Orange Township Board of Trustees. Call this meeting to order. Miss Bonnie, if you could please call roll.
Trustee Grumbles?
Here.
Trustee Rivers?
Here.
Trustee Tranto?
Two actions on the agenda today. The first is the Franklin Railroad crossing. I know there's several residents here that want to speak on the matter. I looked back through correspondence, and early in the year, the dialogue started, and then in February, the substantial updates came through. Essentially, in the past, as most of you remember, the crossing, they attempted to close the crossing or tried to negotiate, and we passed resolution to oppose that. And I know that it went through different railroad commissions, and prosecutor's office for us got involved. Mr. Betts could not be on the call tonight, so I spoke with him yesterday for an extended period of time on the matter. Made sure that I understood what had transpired. And after the dialogue started, and I believe it was 2019, that most of the uptick in dialogue took place, it became increasingly clear that the commission was going to close the crossing. Reason being is the proximity to the other crossing. More substantial crossing that already had the safety measures in place, and the fact that it didn't, lack of traffic, things of that nature. So there was little ground to push back on their desire to close. And so once that was made clear, the prosecutor's office asked if they would consider the financial incentive that was offered to us back in 2018, I believe, and they agreed to do so. The financial incentive, they proposed a few options. One was to improve the Lewis Center Road crossing, and one was to invest in the Orange Road underpass. And so I actually, in some of our discussions, asked if we could work, on other options, and the response back was no, that they really wanted to see that money go towards either one. I know in some of the emails that we received, there was a comment about improving Lewis Center crossing because it's not as pedestrian friendly as would be ideal, and that the current residents use the Franklin Road crossing a lot to get across the existing village. So that's kind of a recap there. And so after the summary overview, I want to open it up to resident comment. I know that Jerry Dill and David were pretty persistent on the hearing and the discussion, and have kind of represented the village well in the past. I wasn't a board member, but I was actually at those meetings. So, Jerry, I'll go ahead and open and let you start. I think you're still on mute there. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay. For the record, my name is Jerry Dill. I live at 1557 Franklin Street in the village. David and Hillary Stanton at 1628 Franklin cannot attend and have yielded their speaking times to me, so I'll try to keep this within a reasonable time here. I appreciate you agreeing to solicit public comment and explore options for us, and I appreciate the recap you just gave us. I know the job of trustee is time-consuming and often thankless. That said, the reports of infighting and finger-pointing and unreturned phone calls and quibbles over the semantics of getting this meeting scheduled were really counterproductive. I think it's sad it took us 32 days to get here. We're still a representative form of government. Please do better for us, guys. We residents deserve better. We strenuously object to the handling of this negotiation process, which has such grave impact on us. We would rather have been advised of new developments and allowed to participate these last few months had we received any sort of heads up or means of comment then or at the April 19th trustee meeting prior to your voting on and signing the resolution. A non-descriptive line item on the April 19th agenda, posted Friday the 16th, and a brief callback 10 minutes before the meeting did not prepare us for this action. Indeed, Trustee Tarano advised that night that she didn't even expect to be able to discuss this matter, citing several emails and that the 30-day notices had not been filed timely. She said that after consultation, Mr. Betts said we could go ahead, and the township hastily posted a notice just minutes or hours before that meeting. It's well known by township staff that there is a notification list of residents regarding this Franklin Street matter, but everybody dropped the ball and we weren't notified. The incentive offer wasn't even read into the minutes during that April 19th discussion, and the page appeared on the YouTube screen for viewing for exactly 1 second. No disclosure to or understanding of the terms to the viewers, including us residents most affected by this. Chairman Grumbles, you did make brief offer for public comment. You must not have known that we were given no Zoom link or any means to comment. As one neighbor put it, could they not hear us screaming at our computer screens? And we were reminded repeatedly that comments made in chat on YouTube were not accepted as public comment. We felt shut out. We're shocked to find ourselves here, fighting to be heard after the fact. The last we knew, Council for Orange Township in Delaware County had filed objections to the proposed closure back in April of 2019, citing our concerns then. And at the July 2019 Rail Commission's public hearing held in the library, numerous local officials continued to express that they, quote, had our backs. We want to know what changed and why we were not informed or made a part of this process. On its face, the mantra that the Rail Commission is going to close Franklin Street with or without our okay, so we might as well take the money, at least sounds like a prudent fiscal decision, even if not the best outcome for the village. Still, we ask, why must this closure be inevitable? How can you agree that this is, quote, in the best interest of the community? This closure will not enhance safety, but will diminish it. Village residents, walkers, runners, and cyclists from the other neighborhoods, families with strollers and wagons, and even the Olentangy High School sports teams in training all navigate Franklin Street crossing daily without incident and to avoid the infinitely more dangerous Lewis Center Road. Many are headed to and from the new North Road Park or the bike path entrance at Franklin and 3rd right at the railroad. Our Delaware County EMS squad, located at Franklin and 3rd, right at the crossing, is also known to use this route when needed, saving precious minutes. To my knowledge, there's only been 2 fatalities at this crossing in 150 years, an accident about 70 years ago, and an unfortunate suicide that no one could have foreseen. And do you folks really believe that people won't try to circumvent the permanent barriers? The commission states the closure will, quote, not impact a historic district. How much more historic can you get than the original platted village of Lewis Center, the last rural vestige of and namesake of our community? Why embrace the concept of Evans Farm new urbanism and then take actions which will bisect our little walking village that's existed for 180 years? Why right now? We have asked repeatedly that at a minimum, this so-called inevitable closure be postponed at least until the completion of the Home Road flyover and the junction to Pyatt Road at Lewis Center Road. We residents already live with the ever-increasing challenge of access in and out of our village. We know that depending on the time of day and which direction one wishes to turn, it helps to cross Franklin Street and go to the other side of our village in order to utilize the small breaks in traffic caused by motorists slowing down at Lewis Center Road. Now, we are suffering unprecedented levels of traffic due to the Evans Farm construction, the proposed construction at the Coves at Evans Farm at the corner of Lewis Center and North, the more continual flow of traffic coming from the new North Road roundabout now that it's done, the proposed construction of a 5,500 square foot addition to North Unitarian Church on Franklin Street right next to this closing, the current giant power pole replacement project going on the Delco property right now, abutting the south side of the village at Franklin Street and the railroad, the not yet completed Green Meadows cut through to the North Road roundabout, and all the rerouting of traffic to Lewis Center Road for recent closings of other roads around us. Who or what is driving demands to close this crossing right now? I actually had an aha moment about 48 hours ago. The incentive offer in the resolution you guys signed states that up to $350,000 could be spent to upgrade the warning devices to 4-quadrant gates at Lewis Center Crossing. I looked this up and learned that 4-quadrant gates are one of 3 improvements accepted when one is seeking a quiet zone crossing. Guess what number 1 is? Closing 1 or more crossings. If a closure can be done at one crossing, typically fewer other improvements would be needed at the remaining adjacent railroad crossing. The railroad's typical first choice of improvement is a closure. That same document indicates the quiet zone must not have any other non-quiet zone crossings within 1/4 mile before the first or last crossing in the proposed quiet zone. Franklin Street has to close. It appears to us that big developer influence and/or money might be driving the creation of this quiet zone crossing to benefit the Evans Farm and other recent development at the expense of us long-term residents of the village. The new residents in their $500,000 plus houses were promised a quiet zone. And before you protest, I sat in one of those Evans Farm information meetings and was told exactly that. But later assured that the North Lewis Center Road crossing was a separate issue and nothing to do with Franklin Street. Other residents have sent you comments or may speak tonight on how this closure will impact their lives. I trust they'll address the loss of ambiance to our historic village, how it will hamper our evening walks and access to the bike path, and interfere with impromptu visits with neighbors or the habit of meeting at the tracks to borrow an egg or share a fresh picked tomato. We've already been living the new urbanism for decades. The truth is, some of us might have even come to accept and understood the indirect benefit of a quiet zone, if that is the ultimate goal of this closure, if you'd kept us informed and part of the process and tried to mitigate the negative effects on us. For now, we respectfully request some answers. Tell us how we got here. Are you able now to rescind or amend this resolution to request a delayed closure until after the aforementioned construction and infrastructure is in place? Will you amend the resolution or otherwise guarantee to us that the $350,000 will be dedicated to improvements at Lewis Center Road and not directed to Orange Road? A quiet zone or other improvements here might soothe the sting of our loss a little bit. To consider using it at Orange Road just adds insult to injury for us. Finally, will you assure us that the $30,000, which, quote, may be used by the township for any purpose, somehow benefits or positively impacts our village? Otherwise, that money just smacks of a 10% signing bonus pitched to the trustees in agreement for playing nice. Most of us still prefer no closure. We'll probably accept a delayed closing. And if closing is inevitable, then we demand that that incentive offer of money be spent here at Lewis Center Road to benefit our immediate village area. If that does include an eventual quiet zone at Lewis Center Road, tell us. This action will change our lives. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Ms. Dill. If there's other residents that would like to speak, feel free to come off of mute, raise your hand. I don't think there's enough people to, I visually see a hand up. So Mr. McCoy, if you'd like to go ahead and come off mute.
Yes, thank you, Trustee Grumbles. I concur with every single syllable out of Ms. Dill's mouth. My family has lived here for 18 years. Our neighbor has lived here off and on for 50 of his 69 years on the face of this earth. The schools have tried to separate this neighborhood by the railroad tracks in the past by proposing to send elementary students that maybe totaled 7 total in the entire village to separate elementary schools. The Central Committee, the Republican Central Committee, separates the neighborhood at the railroad tracks. This will effectively cut off this tiny little village from itself because there's no way to safely cross at Lewis Center Road. The roundabout improvements that I live near, because I'm on the west side, I'm at the dead end of Franklin Street on the west side. The roundabout, quote unquote, improvements have actually made that whole intersection, in my opinion, more dangerous. The drop in elevation that used to be there made a car slow down. Now you've got motorcycles, muscle cars, semis, and every other person going to the lake or driving home from work that thinks it's how fast can I go through a 25-mile-an-hour roundabout, and how fast can I then accelerate between that roundabout and the railroad tracks? There is no safe way in and out of this village. There are limited ways to do this. And my final comment is, based on living here for almost 20 years, I've seen no safety issues with that except one individual who decided to commit suicide. I'm sorry, but closing that access across Franklin Street would not have stopped that man from committing suicide. Other than that, there have been no issues or anything else. The bureaucrats at this railroad commission, and I'm the first to admit that some media reports, especially nowadays, are many times inaccurate. But the media reports on this a couple of years ago, about the reasons that this railroad commission gave for closing that track, some of the reasons had to be completely made up. Their study that stated, and I'll paraphrase, that cars attempt to beat the train by going through the neighborhood. I'm a former engineer and now an attorney. It's physically impossible to beat the train between Lewis Center Road and going on Franklin Street. Now, I will say this, having lived here for 20 years. Whenever a train breaks down, guess what railroad track crossing it blocks? It blocks Lewis Center Road. It rarely blocks Franklin Street, which allows vehicles to get through off of Lewis Center Road, which is, yes, annoying to us as residents of the small village, but more importantly, allows the EMS to go west and to be able to get out of the neighborhood quickly. It's almost coincidental, but I swear in my 18 years here, almost every single time the train is broken down or was stopped, it blocked the Lewis Center crossing and not the Franklin Street crossing. And that's when people would cut through the neighborhood. That's when school buses would cut through the neighborhood, not to beat a train, but to have some physically possible way to get across Lewis Center Road. At a minimum, this needs to be paused. I'm a lawyer. I hate to say this because I'm not a big fan of lawsuits. A lawsuit filed or something occur that stops this until there are other reasonable access points. I agree with Ms. Dill in the fact that the way I read this entry, this thing that was adopted, that the either a proposed underpass for Orange or an upgrade here. My question is, and I know the trustees right now, and I'm not screaming at you, even though I might be talking loud over here. I'm very passionate about this. There's a part of me that unfortunately probably likes to see the Franklin Street crossing closed because I'm tired of random people from the suburban neighborhoods coming on the bike path and basically nibbing around my house and trying to use my lawn or my driveway as a cut through to get to the roundabout sidewalks. I've had to put up barricades, no trespassing signs, because I've got people cutting through my yard, including a car a few months ago or a couple of months ago that drove through my yard and driveway up from the roundabout. They cut through there within 10 feet of my house. I don't know who these people are. They're kids, they're adults, they're bicyclists, you know, a guy barely dressed jogging. And I said, hey, dude, this is my yard, not a road. It's not a sidewalk or a bike path. Oh, you have a problem with it? I was like, yes. Would you like me to come over to your neighborhood and sit in a lawn chair in your front yard? Because that's what it felt like. And I know that I've lived in an area on Franklin Street that's been relatively secluded for the past 18 years until that roundabout went in. But not much thought, even calls to the county went into doing anything about that. If Orange, or if not Orange, if Evans Farm wants to buy out the neighborhood, I suggest they bring many millions to the table and make an offer, because I imagine there's some residents that would entertain that offer. That's all I have to say. I think the trustees need to put up a little bit of a fight here, or there has to be a plan. It can't be, hey, do we even know $350,000 what that buys? What does it buy at Orange? How much is that project? And the trustees and the township may have looked into that underpass many times, and they know what the budget is. What's the budget for Lewis Center Road? Where's that money going to come from? Are there other places in the budget that those improvements can come from? This isn't just a village issue for some right now. They built bike paths and everything along this roundabout and then stopped the bike path at our neighborhood. It picks up in our village. Another bike path picks up on Orange. There's no bike path in front of Evans. This new development that Evans is putting in, or at Evans Farms, Miss Dill talked about the I think retirement type community at the corner of North Road and Lewis Center Road. I'm assuming that there's a bike path that's supposed to go through there. It's just a disjointed, disorganized lack of a plan, or maybe there is a plan, but we just don't have that information. It would be nice to know that information. And honestly, I would be your staunchest defender as trustees, if there was a plan, or if there was no plan and it wasn't your guys' fault, it was the county's or the developer or whatever else was going on. I'm getting a little off topic with that other stuff, but all of that whole picture of how our village sits, the bike paths, the roads, the access, and everything else. I hate to have a railroad crossing shut down before there are answers to those other questions, because the answers to those other questions somewhat depend on, is that track shut, is that access shut down across Franklin Street and across that railroad track? And if it is shut down, what other alternatives are there? If it's not shut down, then what occurs at that point? I just asked for a little, I ask as other residents ask for a pause in what's going on. It seems like the Railroad Commission is strong arming a little bit. They basically, it appears to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, giving you you're going to take this, we're just going to shut it down offer. Well, sometimes you just say no and see what they do. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments. Lewis Center Road's a county road. And so that limits us a little bit too. And I didn't think of that too thoroughly until you pointed out the roundabout and the comment you made about understanding, what would go into that. Orange Road underpass is a significant project, and the funding for that is going to take a long time. I never, in the discussion, I had asked for all alternatives for the money. I believe Trustee Rivers asked about using the money for the village itself somehow. And the prosecutor went back and the response was that, this is where we're at. The crossing's going to close. It's a take it or leave it, either way kind of deal. If a pause, I guess if you look at, I've got the resolution open here. I pulled it up while we were, after we started talking, and let me find it. There's components in there that are 25 for any purpose, 5 for any purpose, and 5,000 for barricades. So essentially 35 grand. I don't think the Orange Road underpass is a realistic project unless the county, eventually takes that road on. And I know there were plans to do that just because of the financial implications. It's my personal opinion as one board member. And we already have no control over Lewis Center Road for the most part, outside of where we can negotiate and leverage. So, I'm personally fine with rescinding the resolution and pausing this and letting our prosecutor know that we want to push back and fight and see if that buys at least some time to get the answers. I don't know that in our discussion that we had, I didn't think it would matter much, but after hearing your comments and having a few aha moments, I'm not sure 35 grand. I don't even look at the 350 because I know that the underpass is so far out and Lewis Center Road isn't something that belongs to us anyway. So I don't know how we would even apply that money to a county project as a township. So I can't see personally disrupting the village and the history there. Some of the points that you made about safety, the safety issue was the predominant driving factor. And if there's no data to support that, I'm a data person, then I'm fine with it. I don't know where Trustee Rivers is on this. Trustee Taranto couldn't be here today. But it would take 2 votes to rescind that resolution and go back to the prosecutor and ask them to negotiate and revise or, whatever the next steps are. But I'm fine with that.
And I have a few comments here to share. My position hasn't changed since this was brought to us back in 2019. And that was, the commission's position was that the Franklin Street crossing, it's inevitable, it will eventually close. And for argument's sake, okay, that's fine. Well, it eventually will close. However, to close that before the home road extension is completed and there's more connectivity is absolutely crazy. I would challenge anyone from the Railroad Commission to come down and visit the village and Lewis Center Road right now and see the current state that it's in with the construction and all that's going on. This is supposedly about safety. Well, by taking away connectivity, whether that's walkable, bike, car, whatever, any connectivity taken away right now is only going to create more safety issues. So, happy to work through this. And once we get these other infrastructure updates completed, and if it's inevitable someday that it's going to be closed, then let's work together and figure out when that would make sense. But to close that right now just makes no sense at all. And just in general, for Orange Township right now, I know there is safety issues, and obviously Orange Road right now is under construction, and we've got some improvements going on there. But the home road extension is number one, in my opinion, most important and number one for Orange Township. That goes to transportation, relieving congestion, economic development. If Evans Farm is going to be successful, those arteries and infrastructure have to be opened up for the traffic and the connectivity needed to make that area successful. And that's not something that we can, wait 10 years on. I think all of our focus and effort needs to be into home road and the home road extension, and happy to support whatever we need to do on Orange Road to make it safe. But to me, home road is number one. I did want to also, for the residents of the village, I do want to apologize. I didn't expect April 19th there to vote to be taken, and I do have to admit was caught a bit flat-footed at that meeting with this subject. So I'm very happy that we've had a chance to discuss this and look into this further, and I 100% support rescinding this agreement and putting a pause on this and figuring out what's the best path forward.
And I will add that the April 19th issue, the township was caught flat-footed. There wasn't awareness of the urgency or the paperwork, and it was a product of the dynamic that Jerry touched on, or Ms. Dill touched on earlier, coupled with the issue at hand. I think there are 5 or 6 opportunities there that they could be learned from, but prior to the meeting, when the February discussion took place and we pushed back in our private meeting and the prosecutor left, I sent a text message to Mr. Dill that the railroad issue was back on the surface. We needed to catch up and talk. After that meeting, some things, took place and deteriorated, and I did not follow up. I apologize on the phone to Ms. Dill and Mr. Dill for that. But I did notify in good faith to let them know, as kind of the folks I knew as the spokespeople there of this issue, what was going on. April 19th happened. It was a very quick addition, not handled the best way possible. I'll be accountable to that. And when we talked about it in the meeting and accepted the proposal, I did read through the bulk of it, and we had talked about it. The part that I did overlook or I wasn't as aware of, admittedly, was that the push was to close it rather quickly. And I do recall from being at the prior meetings that the home road tie-in was a catalyst for rejecting at that point. The desire to have that to take pressure off of the village and provide a conduit. I agree with the value of that road that Mr. Rivers surfaced. I do think it's critical for the township and for the county as a whole. I think it's bigger than the township. My decisions, weren't based upon anything other than the prosecutor's advice and the position that we were in. But I have real concerns with the 3, if there is some sort of financial incentive to move into alignment quicker, sooner than later, then I do have a problem with it being earmarked for county roads that don't allow the township the autonomy to take advantage of it. I don't view Orange Road underpass as a township project. I think Orange Road should be a county road, And I've vocalized that at many meetings. And I've also informed the engineer in a meeting personally, and the county administrator, and at least one county commissioner. So they know my feelings on that topic. You all do too, and the public knows if they listen to the meetings. I know there's some challenges with the overpass. I thought it was a sooner than later project, and it's apparently now going to take longer. To your point, Mr. McCoy, that's probably something we need to dig into further and push back on, and maybe we can leverage, this type of thing too, in order to get that back to the forefront of projects. It's critical in my mind with the growth happening and where it's happening. So if it's okay with the rest of the residents, I don't expect any of you to have a different opinion. If there's anyone that wants to close this thing, you can come off mute now. I'm going to go ahead and motion to rescind that resolution and take the township back into opposition to the closure. And then you can come off of mute. You're welcome to continue sharing your perspective, but I want to get that done. And so the prior resolution was 140. So I'm going to make a motion to approve resolution 21-177, rescinding resolution 21-140, and denying the proposal of the Ohio Rail Development Commission, CSX Transportation, and Norfolk Southern Railway Company for the closure of public grade crossings on Franklin Street, TR 1041.
Second.
Trustee Grambles,
Yes.
Trustee Rivers.
Yes.
All right. So that's done deal now. We'll notify the prosecutor's office via email at the conclusion of today's special meeting. And we'll get back to work with the commission, let them know where things stand, and continue to represent the township. I apologize for the way it was handled as the chair. That's my responsibility, and I should have tabled that. There were issues with the timing of the proposal, and like I said, a lot of that caught us flat-footed. But when you get caught flat-footed, the response, it doesn't justify a response of hammering through. It actually should create more pause than it did. Again, I'll take accountability for that and apologize to you all and for the stress that's caused. But I think we're doing the right thing here tonight, and we'll continue to fight for 30 grand. It's not worth being imposed upon in this way. So we'll go back to the drawing board and see what we can do on your behalf and our behalf. And hopefully that's a satisfactory outcome for everybody here. If you have other comments, feel free to come off of mute and share those with the board.
I'd like to thank the trustees for the meeting tonight. And please have Chris Betts give me a call. So we talk rather frequently on other matters that have nothing to do with railroad tracks. So I'd be glad to talk to him about railroad tracks in the village.
Any other comments, concerns? Ms. Wickline, Ms. Dill, I see some names I know on there, and if you have anything you'd like to add, feel free to come off of mute. Otherwise, we're going to move on to the next topic.
I just want to echo Mr. McCoy's words. I thank you for giving us a venue to air this out and to thankfully understand that it's not over till it's over. We appreciate you listening to us and seeing our reasons and trying to go to bat for us. Thank you.
Ms. Dill, I do want to, I know I told you personally, but for the sake of the residents and the rest of the community, my intent was never to ignore you or not allow you a forum to communicate. I know in the public session I did mention that I thought a special meeting was in order. The township, multiple people at the township had opportunity to get that set up sooner than today. And we should have done that. Again, as the chair, I'll take accountability personally for it, and had no problems with doing so. So I'm glad we were able to meet today, and appreciate you all being patient and persistent, and hope that we can move forward in a positive light with this issue. So thank you.
I feel the same. Thank you.
Last call for comments here. Anyone want to opine on this? Feel free.
Hi, I just wanted to say, maybe there was like an email chain that we were getting from the township at one time, letting us know like what was going on with this. Can we continue that on? Because I personally didn't find out about this until yesterday or day before. Is there any way to get that going again?
I think so. Miss Bonnie is our new acting administrator right now. She's on this call, and she, in our meetings, her and our office manager, Miss Bunting, they make notes, and they have an action list that they send out afterwards, which is a new thing for us. So she can hear us talking, and I'm going to ask that they make that an action item. During the prior years, we had different administrators than we had this most recent time. And then we've had 2 acting administrators in the past month. So, it's not an excuse, it's just the reality. And along the way, my guess is that the list or the notification or something like that was, there was an assumption someone else was doing it type thing. But since the administrator's on the call here and we have the right and the office manager, they can follow up and find the list and the right points of contact, make sure we keep you informed as we are.
Okay, thank you so much. That would make a big difference. And thanks for helping us. We appreciate it.
Right. If there's no other comments, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the other topics that shouldn't be too time consuming. If you want to stick around, that's fine, or you're welcome to leave the meeting. Since it's a special meeting, you don't have to fear anything happening that's not in front of you. We can't change the agenda. The next topic on the agenda is a then and now purchase order for our insurance. I know that the cost went up. Ms. Bonnie, I don't know if the 21% number was the cost of the insurance or the cost of what our carrier paid for us over the last time this was renewed. Do you know which one it is?
It is what our carrier had paid for over the last 5 years. So they do a 5-year average, and we were increased with our renewal fees this year by 21% because of that.
Okay. Any other comments pertinent here that you want to share, Ms. Bonnie or Mr. Rivers? Do you have any questions or concerns here?
No, I know the renewal, we're knocking on the door here for the renewal date.
Motion to approve resolution 21-178, authorize the issuance of a then and now purchase order to Reinhardt, Walters, and Danner.
Second?
Oh, I'm sorry. Trustee Grumbles,
Yes.
Trustee Rivers,
Yes.
and just for the record, so I don't know if you stated this, was Trustee Tranto was absent for this meeting.
Thank you. Nothing else on the agenda tonight. Make a motion to approve resolution 21-179, meeting adjournment.
Second?
Trustee Grumbles,
Yes.
Trustee Rivers.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you all. And thanks for sticking around there. Stefan or Stefan, appreciate it. You have a good evening, sir, and take care.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you, Michelle.
Have a good night.